Welcome back to the Juliana Method. This is episode 5 of our series on career development. Today we're jumping into one of the most crucial elements of job hunting, the perfect resume. Whether you're starting a resume from scratch or updating an old one, I've got you covered. Before we get started, I'd like to give a big thank you to Theo Manunos, an engineering career consultant at UConn, who helped me get a bunch of this information for the video. Let's start by talking about what a resume should look like. It should be clean, professional, and easy to read. You want a simple layout with clear headings and many bullet points. To make it simple for the viewer to read, each topic should look the same. You want to avoid using weird fonts and colors, so I just stick to black text on a white background and use a Times New Roman or an Arial font. Along with this, you don't want your resume to exceed 1 page. If you do have a ton of experience, 2 pages would be the maximum. An ideal resume outline goes as follows. At the top goes your name, and then below that, your phone number, email, and LinkedIn. Make sure that the email included is not one that you made in 5th grade that sounds like animalstuffers@gmail.com. You want it to sound professional. The email you use should be your personal email. For me, I have a UConn email, but I would not use that in my resume. For example, I would use something like julianap@hotmail.com or julianap@gmail.com. Along with having a professional email URL, you also want a professional voicemail. Hirers can be calling your phone number, and you don't want some junky voicemail that you made 10 years ago to throw a hirer away. After that, you can add an objective statement, but that's also optional. An objective statement explains why you want the job, but the hirer already knows that you want the job because you're applying, so it's not necessarily needed. After that comes your education section. You're gonna have the school that you go to or went to with your graduation date after. After that, any majors or minors that you have or are working towards. And then below that, your GPA. GPA doesn't always have to be included. Theo's rule is that if your GPA is less than 3, you should not include it, but if it's greater than 3, you should include it. The hirer can always ask for your GPA later during the interview process. The next section should be your key courses. In this section, do not list every single course you've ever taken in your life. The hirer is looking for courses that are similar to the job description. For example, my major is biomedical engineering, so if I'm looking for an engineering internship, I would include courses such as Foundations of Engineering, Computer Science, Biology, Chemistry, and maybe even some math courses as well. The next section is going to be your skills. While you're young, your skills should be before the experience section, but as you progress through the workforce, your experience may overlay that and be on top. Now, what kind of skills should you be adding into this? There's hard skills and there's soft skills. Before I tell you about the hard skills, I'm going to tell you not to include your soft skills. These are things such as communication, organized, hardworking, etc. You can show that you have these soft skills through your hard skills or your experience, or they may come up in a later interview, but they do not need to be included in your resume. However, hard skills or technical skills should be included in your resume. They should be ordered by importance and relevance. For my example, I would include things such as AutoCAD, Tinkercad, Python, Excel, and more techie things. It should be noted that using documents such as Word and PowerPoint should no longer be included in resumes. At this point, it's rare that somebody doesn't know how to use these. The next and final section is your experience. Your experience should be relevant. If you don't have any relevant experience, you can include relevant projects. I'm going to give you an example that I would include in my experience section. I am currently interning for the Worth Institute at UConn on my own entrepreneurship project that you're watching right now. So I would add the job title, the months and years this took place, and then I would include bullet points that explain what I did. Some things that I may include would be research, outreach, and video editing. Similar bullets that can be included are delivered service in a fast-paced environment, selling of products, advising customers, or more. Let's go through an example for relative projects. In my engineering class, we did a project where we would use solar panels to create a living Martian habitat. You're going to start with the project title. Mine would be Solar Martian Habitat. After the project title, you're going to put when this project was completed, and then after that, a sentence about what this project was. You can explain that you worked in a team and conducted extensive research. You're going to say this is what we did with these tools and created this end product. A few other bullet points can include built prototype using low-cost materials. You can add 3 to 4 bullet points, and 5 is kind of pushing it. So that's basically a rough outline of what your resume should look like. I'm going to leave you with a big list of do's and don'ts. Font size. Nothing under 10.5, nothing over 12 or 11.5. You want the same font type / style throughout the whole document, and something simple like Times New Roman or Arial. You want your resume to look clear, concise, and relevant. I also recommend that you write your resume on a Word document or a Google Doc because some applicant tracking devices cannot read some of the templates that you find online, so it can confuse the company and just kick your resume out of the system. You want margins to help the viewer navigate, and your bullet points should be no more than 2 lines each. Next, add hyperlinks. If you worked on a certain project like the one I'm working on, I would include a link to my YouTube channel or my TikTok. Most resumes are online now, so you could just write YouTube and have a little link in the Word. Don't list references. If a hirer wants a reference, they'll ask for an email or a letter. They don't need to see that in your resume. Next, don't put your address. Unless you're applying for a domestic job like the state that you live in, maybe you can put that state so that you can have a connection. If you're out of state, no address is needed. Your LinkedIn URL is a strong thing to put on your resume. Because resumes should be so job specific, including your LinkedIn shows how much more experience you have that may not be similar to the field you're applying for. One of the questions I asked Theo about was language. Do you include language in a resume or do you not? He explained that just like everything else, it should be relevant. For example, I'm applying for a job in the United States and I say that I speak English. It should be a given that I should speak English if I'm applying for a job here. Some languages that you could include could be Spanish or Mandarin. I speak Portuguese, so I would include that as well, because those are also big languages around the world. Theo speaks Greek, but he would not include that in a resume because it's not as internationally used. Finally, how do you make your resume stand out? You want to demonstrate that you're successful with what you do. Highlight end products that you made during your job or your project. You also want your accomplishments to be well documented and quantified. While you're writing your resume, you want to keep in mind your key audience. There are applicant tracking systems that scan for keywords. Because of these tracking systems, you want your resume to kind of replicate the job description. Some examples of keywords I would use would be project management, Excel, SolidWorks, and more. Although you want your resume to look like the job description, you also need to be able to defend it as well. So you don't want to be putting random things on there just to make yourself look good, even though you know nothing about them. If you want a specific template to help you, you can look up a lot of them online. There's many resources on different colleges' websites. Specifically, I really like this one that I found on UConn's Center of Career Development website. I hope what you learned was useful, and I can't wait to share more tips with you in the next episode. Bye!